Hey guys, welcome to layout 4 for the mini album for my stepdad for Christmas of his dogs. So this one we have a black and white kind of leafy background. On this one, instead of just pulling out a pink and a green, I decided to go for this multicolored layout. There is a background in this book of this multicolored pattern, so I wanted to make sure at some point when I had a black background, a black and white background, to use this multicolor print as layers, so when I get to that other page it'll kind of tie into another layout somewhere. So I'm using this multicolor one. I love this because it has all the colors in the kit in it, so I don't really need to worry about pulling in multiple scraps. I'm thinking for this one I can really lean on this multicolored pattern with maybe one other more solid pattern paper to get this one going. So again, I'm going to leave this photo as a 4x6. I am going to go ahead and double mat it in the white and the black, which I've been doing throughout this book, and then we'll start going with the papers. But for this one, I really wanted to pull in one of the cut-aparts. I have not used any of the cut-aparts from this book yet, but there's one that is the same multicolored pattern that says life is good in gold, and I really wanted to use it on this layout because it brings in that pop of gold I'm trying to have on all the pages, and then it just ties into this big mat here. So that's the goal. I want a pretty decent chunk of this mat to show, so I'm going to try to keep it as wide as possible and go ahead and mat this on this pattern paper, and then I think I'll mat both of these things again in that black. I just love the way the black looks with multicolored, more rainbowy papers. I think the contrast really helps the colors pop. But before I get too far, I'm going to remember to ink the edges of the layout. So I'm just going to do that really quick. With having the multicolored papers, I think the notebook edge punch I'm going to do on this one, I'm going to go back and just do solid black like I did on the first page, just because this page has lots of nice little pops of that solid black within the mats and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and ink the cut apart as well while I'm at it, ink around the photo mat, and then we'll continue matting with the black. I just think that has so much impact when you have these skinny black mats around the color. You can see here without that mat, this rainbow paper really bleeds into the black and white background, which is also kind of a watercolory texture. So having this skinny black mat around the multicolor one, you really can see the definition. So I think that looks a lot cleaner. And since I did that, this little piece was feeling kind of left out. I don't think the inked edges is enough to really help it stand out, so I am going to mat that in black as well. But this is where I kind of decided to do the notebook edge punch in black too, so I'm going to go ahead and get that glued down so I know how far I can kind of space this cut apart. So I'm getting that glued down. I'm wearing my ghost onesie, you can see in this layout. I got that for Halloween, and it's been like my favorite thing to wear around the house since it's been chilly. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get this part glued down before we move on. This so far is the page that looks the most different from the other pages that I've done. But I think as we keep going with the book, it'll make more sense. So I do want a couple of the pages just to be a little different so it doesn't look boring when you're flipping through the whole book and they all look like have the same elements. I want them to all be different enough to stand on their own, but still be cohesive, so that's the goal. But I got that down, so now I can kind of space out the rest of the layout. There is a hole punch on that mat from where it's kind of the branding strip area, so I just want to make sure wherever I layer this cut apart, it's going to cover up that hole. But this is where I realized, yeah, I need to mat this too. It pops a lot more, so I'm going to get that matted. And then once that's down, I'm kind of thinking I don't want it to be just this pattern paper. I do want one more paper to kind of add some layers and make it more interesting. It's kind of just too straightforward and boring how it is now. So I will go and find a pink pattern paper that has that very subtle white diamond pattern that I used on layout 2, but that paper was white with gold dots instead of pink with white dots. So that'll be a nice way this one ties back into one of the earlier layouts without it being too obvious. but I like the extra more solid looking pink paper because it helps break up this kind of busy black and white background and then this multicolored layer. I think it's just what it needed to kind of tame it down. So I did, during all of that I wasn't paying attention, I did just fold a bunch of scrap pieces of black behind the Life is Good. I wanted it to have a little bit of dimension, but I didn't want it to be super thick the way it would be if I matted it in foam. So I did just throw a couple scraps of paper behind there just to lift it up a little bit, so that had some subtle dimension. So that's all I did there. Here's the pink scrap I'm just going to have as a big block layer behind all of these. Of course, it wasn't as big as I needed it to be, so I'm just cheating a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and get that inked, and I think that made a huge difference in how the layout ends up looking. That background can be very busy, so I'm not worried about covering it up more because you get enough of it around the edges, but this pink layer I think is just perfect. So now that I finally have my final layer, I can kind of commit and get this all glued down. But I like how this one turned out, kind of different layers from the other ones, but hopefully it'll still look cohesive with the rest of the book. So I'm going to get all of this secure and glued down, and then we'll be on to layout number 5. So I'll see you in the next one.